Dissecting the week's top stories where we live.
We will be overwhelmed. That is the inescapable conclusion that we face.
We're tracking the week's biggest moments and newsmakers.
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration.
In fact, he may not have been defeated at all.
Jump straight into the news of our week next.
Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, Bob and Marlise Gorley, Haas and Wilkerson Insurance, the Courtney S. Turner Charitable Trust, John H. Mize and Bank of America N.A. co-trustees, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome, I'm Nick Haynes, and thank you for joining us on a journey through the news of our week, dissecting our Metro's most impactful stories. Lisa Rodriguez, City Hall reporter for KCUR News. Next week, News Director of KCUR News. Mugga Mahoney is still Chief Political Reporter for KMBC 9 News. Eric Wesson is the Managing Editor at the Call newspaper. And despite big changes revealed this week at the Kansas City Star, Dave Helling still keeping track of both sides of state line for your daily paper. Now, for the first time in quite a while, COVID-19 is dominating the headlines again. The Mid-America Regional Council claims there's only 95 open hospital beds in the entire metro right now. Well, who is getting infected? How about police officers? The KCPD reporting 18 officers are positive, another 54 in quarantine following a virus outbreak. How about election workers? Nearly half of the staff at the Jackson County Election Board is off the job. 28 election workers testing positive. 2 workers are hospitalized, including 1 in intensive care. But if the situation is really as bad as is now being painted, why has no local leader moved this week to impose new restrictions on schools, businesses and places of worship? Lisa, I've been hearing lots of interviews from Mayor Lucas. He's talking a good game, but he's still not imposing any new restrictions.
No, he's not. There does seem to be right now a disconnect between what health officials and hospitals are saying, sounding the alarms, school officials telling parents to make their plans to go remote. But local government officials haven't yet been ready to take that step. I'm sure that Mayor Lucas has told me, and probably everyone on this, everyone here right now, that everything is on the table, that they're watching the numbers, that, shutdowns or curfews are options, but he's not doing that yet. Right now, he's continued to say, encourage people to wear masks and to social distance. But at a certain point, you've got to think that merely asking people to do that when they clearly haven't been thus far is not going to work anymore.
I have to say this is the issue I probably hear more from our viewers about than anything else, and almost exclusively it's from viewers skeptical about the information they're hearing in the media. Richard writes, the media keeps talking about skyrocketing virus cases. Who's really dying? I note the Johnson County website shows 578 infections per 100,000 during the last 14 days, which is less than 1%. Who can answer, Richard?
It's not so much dying at this point, because the ways that they're addressing this virus are improving. That's without a doubt. On Thursday, the governor of Missouri, Mike Parson, admitted that meaning the state of Missouri, is at a place on this COVID virus that they never expected to be. Now, he continues to rule out shutdowns. I know that some of the health directors of the metropolitan area are urging some local leaders to perhaps make some restrictions on hours of places like bars, maybe restaurants. But the political pushback on that is going to be very difficult. And for those that do not feel like this is real or it's imagined for something like that, I would recommend they talk to somebody at a hospital because of the hospital bed staffing situation and the bed capacity.
Nick, one of the things you're hearing is that the problem from COVID is not just fatalities and really not just illness, but it's starting to be a manpower problem in various occupations. Teachers are running out. They don't have enough teachers because so many are calling in sick with COVID. They don't have enough police officers. They don't have enough. One of the problems in hospitals isn't the lack of beds, it's the lack of nurses and doctors to man those beds. And that's a problem because of COVID. Anyone who thinks that the disease is on the wane or we're around the corner is just not accurate. And there's increasing evidence that it has long-term effects for some people. It's expensive and difficult. We're in the middle of a very, very difficult stretch. That's why it's interesting that the governor in Missouri has decided, at least at some level, to loosen the regulation.
By the way, and Dave Helling talking there about the police department, Eric Wesson, but the police chief said that it wasn't stopping them from doing anything just because they had 54 people in quarantine.
He's saying that they're still performing whatever duties that they need to. It's just kind of interesting that they're always talking about shortage in police officers, but if you've got 54 officers out sick, that means that officers are either having to do double shifts or something is going on with the numbers. But he's claiming that there will be no lack in services with the police department.
By the way, I should point out also a lot of enthusiasm this week about a vaccine coming online. And I know you were reporting on that this week, Michael Mahoney, about the head of health in the state of Missouri saying health workers in our area could get that vaccine by the middle part of December, which is only a few weeks away. What about the rest of us?
This is coming from the director of the health department, Dr. Randall Williams. Frontline healthcare workers that are in long-term care facilities, and healthcare workers over the age of 65 will be in that first batch. The second batch of these folks are going to be first responders, and including teachers and including other people in critical industries. And Williams says that's going to be around 3 million people that they're going to try to vaccinate. And then in the spring, it will be available to all Missourians who want it, free of cost.
I was also interested in your reporting that actually this is not coming from someplace else. The vaccine from Pfizer is actually being developed in Missouri.
The first part of it, Nick, the template, the basic element for this vaccine is being produced at the Pfizer facility, a research campus in Chesterfield, Missouri. After it's developed there, and Pfizer just said on Thursday that they're beginning to actually make the vaccine in anticipation of approval, then it is shipped to another Pfizer facility, I believe in Massachusetts.
I mentioned just a little bit ago about how many Jackson County Election Board workers have now tested positive for coronavirus, some of them in the hospital. But the Election Board insists that despite those staffers coming down, they still expect to have election results certified by the November 16th deadline. That's Monday. And they were still counting ballots, by the way, in Kansas too this week. Who says one vote doesn't make a difference? It has in the race for a Kansas House seat in Johnson County, where one vote separated former Johnson County Community College track star Rashad Young from piano teacher Linda Featherstone. I'm curious, whose votes are still not counted more than a week after Election Day, Dave?
Provisional ballots. Those are ballots cast by voters who, for one reason or another, are prevented from casting a regular ballot on Election Day. They may have asked for a mail ballot, didn't bring it in, asked now to cast a provisional ballot. So all that means is that the Election Board has to go in and make sure that this voter has only voted once and that this is the right ballot. But that's a pretty laborious process. I think there were, I don't want to get over the skis too much. I think there were like 13 or 14,000 provisionals cast in Johnson County. So you have to go through those one at a time. They typically don't make a big difference in how the votes come out because they're cast at roughly the same way others. But in a one-vote race, yeah, they could make all the difference.
Dave, there's about 11,000, just over 11,000 provisionals that Johnson County approved. They expect to have two recounts over there. They've got a one-vote race, and then they've got another state house race that is also within 9 votes. Jackson County will certify on Monday the deadline, even though they're going through the COVID infection in their ranks, and they expect that they may also have a state house race that goes to a recount.
While many of us still haven't fully processed what happened during election 2020, the next election is already getting underway. You may not want to think that far in advance, but speculation is growing that Roy Blunt won't seek re-election in 2022.
You know, the president wasn't defeated by huge numbers. In fact, he may not have been defeated at all.
That's Roy Blunt making headlines this week. If Blunt decides to retire, the St. Louis Business Journal claims disgraced former Governor Eric Greitens is eyeing the Missouri Senate seat. Other possibilities are 3 of the Republican incumbents who cruised to re-election last week. Attorney General Eric Schmidt, Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft, and Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe. As for Democrats, former Missouri Secretary of State Jason Kander is being widely mentioned. He narrowly lost to Blunt 4 years ago, but Kander's name is also being circulated as a possible Biden cabinet member. By the way, Roy Blunt will be 72 when he runs for re-election. That makes him almost a spring chicken in contrast to this year's top-of-the-ticket candidates. What is the evidence he's ready to retire, Lisa?
You know, I haven't seen a whole lot of evidence lately that he's ready to retire. In fact, he seems poised to rise to even greater leadership in the Senate. So there may be growing talk of a challenger or of retirement there, but he has been rising, and he does have a position of leadership in the Senate right now.
Michael.
If the Republicans keep the majority in the Senate, which is likely, Blunt will remain in there because he loves being in leadership. He was in the House leadership. He's in the Senate leadership. He really likes those positions for all the obvious reasons. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Eric Greitens tries to make a primary challenge towards Roy Blunt in 2022. Over on the Kansas side, Jerry Moran just announced in the middle of last week, he's running for re-election. And so a lot of the people that were thinking about maybe that in Kansas being a possibility will now train their eyes on lining up on the Republican side to try and oust first-term governor Democrat Laura Kelly. Among those people included in that could be Matt Schlapp, who is the head of the Conservative Political Action Committee, who was in the state campaigning and prospecting during the Senate race. So there may be Derek Schmidt in the Attorney General's office may also take a look at that. There are other folks around Kansas that are lining up. Kansas could, again, the Republican Party, have a crowded primary in the summer of 2022 to take on Laura Kelly.
Could one of those challengers also be former Kansas Congressman Mike Pompeo, who is also making national news this week?
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration.
Does he have designs on that race too?
Yeah, I think he does. He wants he wanted to be the senator, but he also loved the play Hamlet, and so he simply did not make that race. I think he may regret that right now. But it's possible that Pompeo comes back. I think he would prefer a Senate seat as opposed to the governor's mansion, but governor mansion is executive power, and that's always attractive to a politician.
You know, 2 years after losing her Senate seat, is Claire McCaskill trying to wage a comeback? I only ask because did you see that story about the Utah man who was driving to kill McCaskill? Does he realize, Eric Wesson, she's no longer a U.S. senator?
I don't know, but he was driving. They said he was driving 130 miles an hour in order to get here. She might make a comeback. You know, I don't know. You know, if the Democratic Party, if the best they can do is Jason Kander right now, you know, he still had some mental issues that had him to drop out of politics altogether. So maybe she might make a comeback, but I think she likes being on the news and just being a commentator and just kicking back, throwing bricks rather than actually being in a fight. So it's questionable about who the Democratic Party could pull out if Senator Blunt decides he doesn't want to run again.
Dave.
Yeah, can I just say, I think the absolute most likely outcome in Missouri is that Roy Blunt runs for re-election, that the Democrats put up basically a tomato can because raising money and finding a legitimate candidate against an incumbent like Blunt will be difficult, made more difficult, Nick, because 2022 is going to be a Republican year. It's always the out party that does well in the second year of a Democratic president, which Joe Biden will be. So I just don't see that anything other than a Roy Blunt cruise to re-election in 2022 and Jerry Moran. The real focus is Josh Hawley in 2024, and we'll have to pay some attention to that.
If that is the assessment, though, doesn't that make it challenging for Laura Kelly to get re-elected 2 years from now then, Michael?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Republicans know that, and they're going to make her life miserable. Now, if they have, as Mike suggests, a very difficult primary, Nick, if there are 4 or 5, Sue Wagle is another name you'll hear, if you have a very bruising primary, that makes Kelly's path a little bit easier, but boy, Laura Kelly faces enormous hurdles between now and the next election, and she'll have to meet them or she'll be the underdog in that race.
Now, while we were so fixated on covering the election, the Kansas City Council was voting on this man to become the next city manager, but not without opposition. Every black member of the city council, with the exception of the mayor, voted against hiring Brian Platt. It's worth noting that also this week that the mayor joined a Biden celebration party and he was interrupted and booed.
How y'all doing today?
Well, they're unhappy. Mayor Lucas is unwilling to fire Police Chief Rick Smith. Is this friction that needs watching, or is the mayor still riding high with broad community support, Lisa?
You know, it's clear that calls for the firing of Chief Rick Smith are not quieting down. Protesters have vowed to continue showing up at Board of Police Commissioners meetings or have continued to make these calls. So I do think that it's something that he needs to watch.
Is that why he was also coming forward this week, Eric Wesson, to propose changes in police reform to make it easier for people to file complaints against the police department?
You know, that those resolutions and things that he introduces without policy, they're just really just a process in which people go through. There's nothing been changed with the police policy. But I kind of want to back up to the city manager. Here's a lawsuit in the state of New Jersey that names the city manager. One of the things that the council people asked and what they did with the vetting process was there any skeletons in their closet? With the 3 black candidates, they all had a little something in their closet, but none of this lawsuit that is still pending in New Jersey that hollers discrimination, it hollers people being retaliated against. And I'm going to say this, his support in the black community is kind of getting very wavered, not only with the chief of police, but this process in which the city manager was hired. That's why all the black council members voted no for this new city manager, because that process was very shaky.
Michael.
Yeah, here's the thing. When you have a vote that split for the city manager, that's got to be troubling. The other thing is, this is a big step up for this guy into a big city, not just a New York City suburb on the Jersey side of the river.
But his wife does have connections here in Kansas City, though, Dave.
Yeah, so what? Okay. So what?
Dave.
Mike's exactly right. When all 4 black members of the council vote against a city manager candidate, that is sending some sort of signal. I do think that Quinton Lucas trying to bridge that gap, very difficult to do, very difficult place to be. And so it bears watching this phenomenon.
Mayor Lucas has got to get off the fence on some issues. He kind of has had a history of just walking the fence, not taking one side, not wanting to offend people on the other side. He is going to have to step up. He's not going to always have friends. That's not why he runs for that position. He's going to have to make some key decisions.
If you don't smoke, it may not mean much to you, but it's a big deal for many people who do. The Kansas City Council working on a ban of all actually flavored tobacco products. What does that mean? Well, no more menthol cigarettes or any flavored cigars, vape pens, and e-cigarettes. Of all the issues City Hall could be dealing with right now, and the mayor for that matter, why is this such a priority, Lisa?
I think this ordinance has been framed by its sponsors as a social justice issue, that flavored tobacco, particularly menthol cigarettes and menthol products, are more highly advertised and promoted in Black communities. And so that is how the sponsors, Councilman Raina Parks Shaw, Melissa Robinson echoed this as well, is that we've seen a lot of the social justice movement on the law enforcement side. This is on kind of the health and health outcome side, and that's how they framed it to the committee. But I will say it has not passed out yet. It's still in committee. There are some that worry that it's far too broad, and there's definitely been pushback from the business and retailers as well.
Yes, and they think that people will just go to other cities to pick up those products if you can't do it here. But I was also wondering, Dave Helling, about the state. I mean, in the past, the state has said local cities, for instance, can't pass plastic bag bans. They can't pass minimum wage laws that are above what is happening in the state, and you can't pass local gun restrictions. Couldn't they just come and say, you can't do this either? This is a legal product.
Well, they could, and in fact, there is a statute in the state of Missouri that prohibits cities from taxing tobacco products. You may remember after the firefighters' explosion in the late 80s, Nick, Kansas City passed a special tobacco tax to pay for the hazmat unit. Just after that happened, the state legislature said, okay, no more of that. We're the only ones that can do anything in terms of tobacco taxes. So if the council passes this, and it seems possible they'll do so, look for the legislature to at least take a look at getting involved.
You know, usually after an election, our politicians head into hibernation for a while, but not in Missouri. State lawmakers this week were in Jefferson City for a rare lame duck session. Weren't they just in a special session on crime just a few weeks ago? What are they hoping to achieve now, Michael?
Two things. Number one, allocating about $1.3 billion in federal CARES money that they already have, and then add a COVID liability law in there that would protect healthcare workers, businesses, teachers, manufacturers, almost anybody under the sun from getting sued because of some problem that stems out of COVID.
Is it going to be easier for the governor to get his way on that, Dave Helling, especially coming out of an election where he won so handsomely at the polls? Or does it not matter right now because those new lawmakers won't take office until January?
No. It'll sail through. There are veto-proof majorities in both houses in Missouri now. There will be after the inauguration next year. The Republicans have complete control of government in the state of Missouri.
Just before the election, Eric Wesson, Mayor Quinton Lucas was holding a press conference to endorse Mike Parson's opponent, Nicole Galloway. Now, he clearly lost on that. What is going to happen on that? Is it going to be very hard for Mayor Lucas, for instance, to get anything now from what was once his friend, Governor Mike Parson, now that he endorsed his opponent who lost?
Well, you know, I think that's just politics. And I think the governor probably understands that. But it's not like he was getting a whole lot of things anyway.
Okay, all right.
So I guess his philosophy is there's no real big loss. But it's just interesting now that right after the election, then they decide to release the $1 billion that they've been sitting on for the past month and a half, getting it out to the counties, to people that really, really, really needed it.
Nick, can I just real quickly tell you where this will make a difference? In the spring of next year, Nathan Garrett, who is one of the most conservative members of the Kansas City Police Board, his term expires, and Governor Parson will have to appoint a replacement if he wants to do so. I'm sure that Quinton Lucas would prefer someone else sit on that board, someone more amenable to his proposed changes, and it'll be fascinating to see if Mike Parson honors the mayor's wishes on that seat or appoints someone like Nathan Garrett or reappoints Garrett when his term expires. That's where these decisions become very, very important.
When you put a show like this together every week, you can't get to every big story making the headlines. What was the big local story we missed? More jobs and $100 million in new investment as Ford picks Kansas City to build its latest electric vehicle. Big changes at your Kansas City start. They're moving out, selling the new glass building and giving up the printing presses. Your daily paper will now be shipped in from Des Moines. More than 100 people losing their jobs in the cost-saving move. Opening day pushed back at the Truman Library. The virus halting progress on the biggest renovation project in the museum's history. Climbing new heights to honor Veterans Day in Kansas City. It's also Transgender Awareness Week, and we're in the national spotlight. The movie channel HBO picking up a local film tracking 4 transgender kids from both sides of state line. And the sharks are coming. The city greenlighting a $75 million aquarium at the Kansas City Zoo. It'll be paid for through private donations and an existing zoo tax. Okay, Lisa Rodriguez, did you pick one of those stories or something completely different?
I picked a detail that came out of the Shawnee Mission School District board meeting this week, yet another challenge in fighting the coronavirus, and that is that school nurses are coming under increasing difficulty trying to do any contact tracing when a student or someone is sick, even getting hostility, being berated by parents, that many parents are refusing to engage in any contact tracing efforts. And we've said since the beginning, part of the strategy in fighting coronavirus is testing and tracing. And when schools are not able to do that, it's putting them in a very, very difficult position.
Eric Wesson.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going through the NFL like a hot knife through butter. And there's a new polar bear at the Kansas City Zoo.
Good. I love that. Michael.
Electric trucks at Clay Como, the Ford plant here. Anytime anything buttresses the fortunes of the two big auto plants here in Kansas City, that is good news. It's good for jobs. It's good for the town.
Dave Helling.
Missouri House Republican leadership said this week, Nick, that they will investigate allegations against Rick Raber, who is the elected representative for House District 34. He won in November. His children have accused him of abuse, his adult children. He has denied those charges. The Republicans will investigate.
None of you bit on the Kansas City Star story, and you're not in management, Dave Helling, but I am interested to know if you're bringing in the newspaper from Des Moines and that's where it's now being printed and coming back to Kansas City, doesn't that mean you have to write your articles so much further in advance to be able to get in the paper?
Well, we have pretty early deadlines now. They will move up a little bit, Nick, but regardless of what romanticism one attaches to the printed product, it's very clear that the people who now own the Star and other newspapers are committed to a digital transformation. That's what we're in the middle of. That's where deadlines will matter. That's where you're going to get your news from the Star in the years to come.
And I could not fail to notice, Lisa, that your own station, KCUR, saying, could the Star's soon-to-be vacated building make way for a new downtown baseball stadium?
I think it's wishful thinking on the parts of many people in Kansas City. This city is very fixated on the downtown baseball stadium.
Real quick, the downtown stadium is quite interesting, no doubt about this. But and Dave won't say it, so I'll say it for him. This is a troubling signal about a major news institution in this town. Yeah, papers get printed at different places all the time. That's not news, but it's not good for journalism in Kansas City to have this news organization, the Kansas City Star, do this kind of scale back. It's troubling.
And on that, we will say our week has been reviewed. Thank you, KCUR's Lisa Rodriguez, the Call's Eric Wesson, Michael Mahoney from KMBC 9 News, and Dave Helling from your Kansas City Star. I'm Nick Haynes from all of us here at Kansas City PBS. Keep calm and carry on.